It was a small, quaint town nestled in the woods. And the only thing more peculiar than the townsfolk's superstitions was the dilapidated old mansion that sat at the edge of the forest. For years, the mansion had been abandoned and left to decay. But now it had been purchased by a wealthy businessman from the city. The townsfolk whispered that he had paid a steep price for the mansion, and rumors began to spread that the businessman was not alone in the house. The first time I saw the mansion, I was out walking in the woods. It was a bright and sunny day, and the birds were singing in the trees. As I approached the mansion, I felt a shiver run down my spine. It was as if the house was alive, and it was watching me. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off about the house. It was as if it was holding some dark secret, and I was determined to uncover it. As the days passed, I became more obsessed with the mansion. I couldn't stop thinking about it, and I found myself walking by it more and more often. Each time I passed, I would try to catch a glimpse of what was going on inside, but the curtains were always drawn. One night, I woke up to a strange sound coming from outside. I got out of bed and walked over to the window, and as I peered out, I saw a figure walking up the path to the mansion. It was the businessman, and he was carrying something large and heavy. I watched as he disappeared inside, and the door slammed shut behind him. A few minutes later, I heard a loud banging sound, followed by a muffled scream. I was frozen with fear, but I knew I had to do something. I grabbed a flashlight and headed out into the night, determined to find out what was going on in that house. I made my way up the path to the mansion, my heart pounding in my chest. The closer I got, the more I could feel the darkness that surrounded the house. It was like a physical presence, and it was suffocating. When I reached the front door, I hesitated for a moment, my hand hovering over the doorknob. But then I heard another scream, and I knew I had to act fast. I pushed the door open and stepped inside, my flashlight cutting through the darkness. The air was thick with the smell of decay and rot, and I could hear something moving in the shadows. I called out, but there was no answer. I took a step forward, and that's when I saw it. There was a figure in the corner of the room, huddled in the shadows. It was the businessman, and he was covered in blood. I approached him slowly, my flashlight shaking in my hand. "What happened?" I asked. He looked up at me, his eyes wide with fear. "They're coming," he whispered. I didn't know who or what he was talking about, but I knew we had to get out of there. I helped the businessman to his feet, and we started to make our way towards the door. That's when we heard the sound. It was a low, guttural growl that seemed to be coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. The businessman started to panic, and he pulled away from me. "I have to stay," he said. "They won't stop until they get what they want." "What do they want?" I asked. He didn't answer. Instead, he ran off into the darkness, leaving me alone in the mansion. I didn't know what to do. I was trapped in the house, and I didn't know what was coming for me. I made my way through the mansion, my flashlight shaking in my hand. Every creak of the floorboards made me jump, and every shadow seemed to hold a threat. As I moved through the house, I began to see things that I couldn't explain. Shadows moved on their own, and I could hear whispers that seemed to be coming from the walls. I was on edge, and I knew that something was watching me, but I couldn't see it, and that made it even worse. As I turned a corner, I saw a figure standing in front of me. It was a woman, and she was dressed in a white gown. Her eyes were dark and empty, and she seemed to be floating above the ground. I tried to run, but my legs wouldn't move. The woman came closer and closer, and I could feel her cold breath on my face. And then, everything went black. When I woke up, I was lying on the floor of the mansion. My head was pounding, and I could taste blood in my mouth. As I tried to get up, I heard a sound coming from the hallway. It was a soft, shuffling sound, like something was dragging itself towards me. I forced myself to my feet and headed towards the sound. The hallway was dark, but I could see a figure moving in the shadows. As I got closer, I could see that it was a man. He was dressed in a tattered suit, and his face was covered in scars. "Who are you?" I asked. The man didn't answer. Instead, he lunged at me, his hands outstretched. I tried to run, but the man was too fast. He tackled me to the ground, and I could feel his hot breath on my face. And then I saw them, dozens of eyes, glowing in the darkness. They were everywhere, watching me. I tried to scream, but the man's hand was over my mouth. I struggled to get free, but he was too strong. The eyes in the darkness seemed to be getting closer, and I could feel them all around me. They were watching me, waiting for me to make a move. And then, just as suddenly as it had started, the man was gone. I was alone in the hallway, with only the glowing eyes for company. I stumbled to my feet and started to run, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I had to get out of the mansion. As I ran, I saw more and more of the glowing eyes. They seemed to be following me, and I could hear their soft whispers in the darkness. And then I saw the front door. It was open, and I could see the light of the moon shining through. I ran towards the door, but just as I was about to step outside, something grabbed me from behind. I struggled to get free, but the thing was too strong. It pulled me back into the darkness of the mansion, and I could feel its hot breath on my neck. I turned to face the thing, and that's when I saw it. It was a creature, unlike anything I had ever seen before. Its skin was a sickly green color, and its eyes glowed in the darkness. The creature snarled, and I could feel its hot breath on my face. It was going to kill me, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. And then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the creature was gone. I was alone in the darkness, with only my racing heart for company. I stumbled towards the front door and stepped outside. The night air was cold, and I could see the stars twinkling in the sky. I turned to look back at the mansion, and that's when I saw her. It was the woman in the white gown, and she was standing in the window, watching me. I tried to run, but my legs wouldn't move. The woman in the window seemed to be calling to me, and I couldn't resist. I walked back towards the mansion, my heart pounding in my chest. I knew I shouldn't go back, but I couldn't stop myself. As I entered the mansion, the darkness seemed to swallow me up. I could feel the eyes watching me, and I knew that I was in danger. And then I saw her. The woman in the white gown was standing in front of me, her eyes dark and empty. "Who are you?" I asked. The woman didn't answer. Instead, she started to walk towards me. I tried to run, but my legs wouldn't move. The woman was getting closer and closer, and I could feel her cold breath on my face. And then, everything went black. When I woke up, I was in a room I didn't recognize. The walls were covered in strange symbols, and the air was thick with the smell of rot. As I tried to get up, I realized that I was tied to a chair. I struggled to break free, but the ropes were too tight. And then, I heard a sound coming from the shadows. It was a soft, shuffling sound, like something was dragging itself towards me. And then, I saw them, creatures, unlike anything I had ever seen before. They were covered in scales, and their eyes glowed in the darkness. The creatures started to circle me, their hot breath on my face. They were going to kill me, and there was nothing I could do to stop them. And then, I heard a voice. It was the businessman, and he was standing in the doorway. "Help me," I begged. But the businessman just stood there, watching as the creatures closed in. The creatures were getting closer and closer, and I could feel their claws digging into my skin. I was going to die, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. And then, just as suddenly as it had started, the creatures were gone. I was alone in the room, with only the businessman for company. "Why did you do this?" I asked. The businessman didn't answer. Instead, he started to walk towards me, a strange look in his eyes. And then, he lunged at me, his hands outstretched. I struggled to break free, but the ropes were too tight. The businessman grabbed me by the throat, and I could feel his hot breath on my face. "You shouldn't have come here," he hissed. And then, everything went black. When I woke up, I was back in my own bed. The sun was shining through the window, and the birds were singing in the trees. I sat up, my head spinning. I didn't know what had happened, but I knew that something was wrong. As I got out of bed, I saw a note on the dresser. It was from the businessman, and it said, "Stay away from the mansion. You're not safe here." I didn't know what to do. I wanted to forget everything that had happened, but I knew that I couldn't. And then, I saw her. The woman in the white gown was standing in the doorway, watching me. I tried to run, but my legs wouldn't move. The woman was getting closer and closer, and I could feel her cold breath on my face. And then, everything went black. When I woke up, I was in the mansion. I didn't know how I had gotten there, but I knew that I was in danger. As I tried to get up, I saw the creatures. They were all around me, their eyes glowing in the darkness. I struggled to break free, but the creatures were too strong. They started to drag me towards the shadows, and I knew that I was going to die. And then, I saw him. It was the businessman, and he was holding a strange object in his hand. The object glowed in the darkness, and the creatures started to back away. The businessman approached me, and he started to untie me. "You have to leave," he said. "They're coming for you." And then, everything went black. Then I woke up. I was outside the mansion. The sun was shining, and the birds were singing in the trees. I didn't know what had happened, but I knew that I had to get away from the mansion. I started to walk towards the town, my heart pounding in my chest. As I walked, I saw the woman in the white gown. She was following me, her eyes dark and empty. I tried to run, but the woman was too fast. She grabbed me by the arm, and I could feel her cold breath on my face. And then I saw them, dozens of creatures all around me. They were going to kill me, and there was nothing I could do to stop them. And then I heard a voice. It was the businessman, and he was holding the glowing object. "Run," he said. "I'll hold them off." I didn't know what to do, but I knew that I had to get away. I started to run, my heart pounding in my chest. And then everything went black. When I woke up, I was in a hospital bed. The doctors told me that I had been found in the woods, and that I had been unconscious for several days. I didn't tell them about the mansion, or the creatures, or the woman in the white gown. I knew that they wouldn't believe me, but I couldn't forget what had happened. The darkness of the mansion, the glowing eyes, the creatures that wanted to kill me. And then, just as suddenly as it had started, it was over. The mansion was gone, and the town had returned to normal. But I knew that it wasn't really over. The darkness was still out there, waiting for its next victim, and I knew that I would never be the same again.